But who better than me?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Base Talks. Now, it's another monumental occasion for myself and the channel, because just like when I've got to finally interview Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn for the very first times, you know, it was a big deal because who was I? And I got a good amount of time with both people. On this occasion, this one ain't for the Undefeated podcast. You know, my colleagues, this one is strictly for me, so I could go my own unfiltered opinions, views, and basically live or die by everything that I wanted to know from me personally. Now, I managed to get a lot more time than I was supposed to. I was only supposed to have like a 4-minute interview. Let's just say, fortunately, I knew how to continue certain conversations to allow me to get a little bit more. So I got some of the questions that I really wanted to ask answered, and they were answered. You know, there was no sort of beating around the bush. When you watch, you're gonna kind of see, oh, okay, yeah, you managed to get those the responses that you wanted. Didn't necessarily get what maybe I would have liked to have heard, but everything was answered correctly. So with that being said, please watch, have a look, enjoy. I'll be back straight after the interview. This is Base the Kid, the hardcore casual, and finally I am joined by boxer head honcho Ben Shalom at the final press conference of Bad Blood Wardley versus Clark. Now listen, Ben, it's fair to say in the past you've had some criticism levied at you, sometimes very unfair, other times more rightly so. I won't say that I've also criticised. What I do want to say though is this card is fantastic, like top to bottom, fully stacked, and it's almost to the credit of yourself that in maybe a year from now, maybe even 2 years, someone could look back at this and say, how did this not end up on box office? So how have you managed to pull this one off thus far?
Look, I have to thank everyone that's supporting me, because it is such a big card. To not have it on pay-per-view was a challenge, but the main thing that I'm proud about is, and sometimes people don't realise, we started a stable from nothing, so we didn't have any fighters, and so to see Fraser Clark, to see Ben Whittaker, to see Vidal Riley, Callum Simpson, Florian Marku, fighters that we've grown with, finally getting their big moments, their big stages, selling out O2s, having nights like this. When we first started, we had to bring this person together, bring that person together. We had Josh Taylor, we had Chris Eubank Jr., Amir Khan, not our fighters, but that was a way of putting on the big shows and getting through. So I'm delighted now that we're sitting here and seeing the talent that we've developed over those years that's been difficult to do in the public light. You know, these fighters do need to develop before they can take on big fights like this, and sometimes I think people forget that. So it's just amazing to now be here and show what we can do with our fighters on a show like this. It's an absolute monster, and as a fan, more than anything, I'm excited.
So if we look at the top of this card, obviously Fabio Wardley, free agent. Fraser Clark is obviously one of your golden children when it comes to boxer. So when you look at this and you say, well, you believe that he's got the talent to obviously win the belt and keep pushing on, how much confidence and how much reassurance did it kind of take for you to ultimately decide this is the right time for you to take such a big step?
Look, there was a lot of criticism, wasn't there, when this fight wasn't taken after 6 fights, and I think Fraser would have fought him in his first fight. You know, he's a fighter and he's frustrated, and he's a very, very talented fighter as well, but I think you sat there and then you think, right, so he's taking it after 8 fights, he's set to become the fastest ever British heavyweight champion of all time. He's moving at tremendous pace, ferocious pace, and the same people saying he shouldn't have been pulled out are now saying it's too early. So which one is it? He's here, he's ready to go, ready to break a record that stood for a long, long time, and I expect him to do it. And yeah, I think he was always ready. Sometimes it's about just having a couple of nights under the bright lights where there's pressure on you, where you're fighting someone that's going to be able to take you the distance, 10 rounds, 12 rounds, understanding how fit really are you, how ready are you. You know, you might think you are, but are you? He's had those tests. I think he's ready now, and I think he's moving it at a tremendous pace.
Okay, so look, moving away from this card very briefly. Obviously, if we look at last week, there's the whole Dalton Smith, Adam Azim thing. I'm not necessarily going to ask you the same thing I know you've had to answer numerous times before. But what I do want to ask, with regards to that, I heard you in a couple of interviews say that Adam Azim has been given some offers. Dalton Smith is on the table of those, but the team will make the decision. You want to make the biggest fights possible selfishly. But if that fight doesn't materialize with Dalton Smith next, are you expecting a lot of scrutiny on his next opponent if it's not of equal or better value to the public?
Oh, 100%. I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on what we do next, and a lot of eyes on what opponent he fights. All it is, you know, sometimes I don't like it in the sense I'm there to protect Adam. He's a 21-year-old kid. Sometimes I feel like he's a bit of a bully in the playground mentality from certain people. And I don't think it's good. I don't think it's, especially for a young potential superstar of the sport, I'd want to catch him early. I'd want to get him as young as possible. That's the best chance that any fighter's going to have because he's moving at such speed. But yeah, of course there'll be scrutiny on what he does next. And there's going to be scrutiny his whole career. You know, he's now in the limelight. He's now headline shows on Sky Sports. He's now considered one of the brightest prospects we have in this country. He's 21 years old, European champion. Scrutiny is always going to come, but yeah, of course, after next week, it's going to really come.
But when we look at it, I totally understand that, yeah, he is young, but he has been marketed, as you said, like the next star. He's being fast-tracked. It's been openly said on numerous occasions that's the trajectory that he's going. So there is also the thought of, if you're good enough, you're old enough. So would that maybe make people then think, okay, maybe he's not as far along as they were potentially thinking if he doesn't take a big fight like that, a 50-50 fight?
No, I can get that. I can see that. I think ultimately we work with the McQuiggans quite closely, and Shane and Barry and Jake have guided many fighters really, really well, and pretty quick as well if you think of Josh Taylor and Carl Frampton, and we see the same for Adam, but ultimately a lot's weighed up sometimes, you know. For instance, Fraser Clark this weekend, he's headlining the O2. He's earning way more money than he ever could have made the first time round. He gets his platform, his moment. There's not many moments you get to really break into that pay-per-view market. And you have to sit there as a team and think, is this right for Adam? Is he going to earn the most money he could possibly make from this fight? He is 21, you know, and he's still developing. So I think, you know, you are right to say that, and I do get that, and I'm sure that will be weighed up. But, you know, as I say, I believe he beats Dalton Smith now. I really do. I believe he wipes the floor with him in 3 or 4 fights, and I believe both teams are looking at that and thinking, yeah, we'd like to catch him now, and you got to expect that. And he's going to have a lot of people, as you saw with Ben Whittaker today. He's going to have a lot of people coming for him, gunning for him, and wanting to catch him. And he's definitely the money fight.
Ben, one last question with regards to Lawrence Okoli. He's going to be fighting Lukas Rozansky out in Poland in his next fight. One thing I want to ask about you, because of how the acrimonious nature of that acquisition sort of came about, not of your own fault in that situation, but with all of that, you know, him ultimately first fight Manchester, second fight Bournemouth, third fight in Poland. Like, how do you feel that, have you been hamstrung in how you've been able to promote him not having a hometown fight, and he was a champion when you signed him?
Yeah, it's been a difficult year for Lawrence. You know, his mandatory got called against David Light. That was meant to be on the Taylor Cattrall undercard. That got pulled, but we wanted to get it on. He then didn't have a performance that he liked, and he wanted to get straight back out. And so the Chris Billen-Smith fight was having 7-8 weeks later, and then that didn't go to plan. And so it's been difficult for him. But then you have to sit there and try and work out and do your best for someone that you care about and that you want to have a great career, and who already has had a great career. And so when you sit down and you talk about things, and you understand how much he's been struggling with the weight, and his performances in the past 3 or 4 fights have been substandard for him, and he's killing himself to do that. And so we worked hard, and we've worked really hard to get him a world title opportunity. That doesn't come around every much. You know, we had to work hard with Maurizio, we had to work hard with both teams, and get him a huge opportunity. It really is, for someone with the ambition that he has in the heavyweight division, to have an opportunity to go and become a 2-weight world champion. We've seen what happened with Babic and Rozansky, so we're well aware of what Rozansky can do, and those first few rounds are going to be hectic. I'm just glad he's getting another opportunity. I think it's the right move for him. I think he's changed his team. You've seen him link up with Joe Gallagher. He now feels more comfortable at the weight, and he'll enjoy his camp more. And I think we're going to see the most explosive version of Lawrence Okoli now. So, look, we know it was a difficult year for him. I'm just glad to see him back in the ring and getting such a big opportunity.
And the weight, I'm assuming, is the reason why that rematch clause wasn't ultimately picked up.
Yeah, I think you have to make a decision. When it happens 3 or 4 times and the performances aren't what you want, and there's a potential issue there, and we know his ambition of going to heavyweight, and then you can deliver a world title, WBC world title like this. I think it made sense for all parties.
Ben, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Hope to speak to you again.
Top man, cheers. Cheers, brother.
So as you can see, I don't think I asked or came at any subject from the same way everyone else did. And I think that was the reason I was able to get genuine answers, or maybe answers that weren't, for lack of a better word, scripted. Because we've pretty much seen the same answers to the same questions in interview after interview after interview. So my strategy was ultimately not to ask those questions, or to ask them in different ways, so that the same scripted answers don't necessarily make sense to the questions. But yeah, I got to talk about things I wanted to talk about. There was some other stuff I did want to kind of go into. I did want to speak a little bit about Joshua Buatsi. I wanted to speak about the sort of the Lauren Price card, a few other little bits and pieces as well. Up front, I had no interest in speaking about the Times article and all of that stuff. Funnily enough, I was actually asked before the interview if I would be bringing that up, and I said no. So yeah, I don't know if that means that they would have told me not to ask those questions. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I did what I needed to do. So with that being said, yeah, leave your comments down below. If you guys are in the Premiere chat right now, leave your comments there as well. But thank you for watching. Hopefully I can get another one at some point. I may have some news for you guys about changes to the channel and the formats in sort of the next couple of months, but as soon as I know, you guys will know. Shout out to all the new subscribers, shout out to all the new members. I'm going to do a video tomorrow actually, whereby I'm going to make it members early access, so you guys, I'll put it to the rest of the people like a day later or something, but we'll work that out nearer the time. But for right now, thank you very much for watching. That's another Base Talks down. Hopefully it's not the last, but hey, you never know in this crazy game. But hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you on the next one. So until then, peace.